Thanks to the wonderful franchise starring Johnny Depp, pirates have become something romantic and even kind for the modern world. It's funny because in reality, they were no less, if not more, colorful characters. Today, we will live one day in the shoes of an ordinary pirate from the golden age of this profession. How did the most powerful empires recruit pirates? Why was being a pirate more prestigious than any civilian profession? And the only pirate state in history awaits you in the next few minutes. Meet our guest, Marcus Barbarossa Rashford. Like modern comedians, pirates inserted nicknames into their names. Some guys, like Bartolomeo the Portuguese, ignored their surnames and took nicknames from their native countries and cities. Sometimes pirates were given nicknames by their comrades. A striking example is the legendary Algerian pirate Deadhead. There's no mysticism in the nickname. The guy was so bald that his colleagues joked about the dead desert where not a single hair could grow. As for our Marcus, he was nicknamed Barbarossa by his friends for his bright red beard. Nicknames based on appearance were the most common: long, fatty, sleeper, and even strong-tooth. Pirates on the ocean had nicknames for every taste. However, some didn't bother and just took fake names. As you understand, piracy has no specific historical era. Pirates have always existed, from primitive raiders on rafts to modern Somalians with automatic weapons. Even in the famous poem The Odyssey by Homer, there are mentions of pirates. 3,000 years ago, Phoenician pirates roamed the Mediterranean Sea. However, in the past, their main targets were not ships, but coastal villages. They captured the inhabitants to later sell them into slavery. In subsequent eras, there was no clear boundary between pirates and merchants. Every sea trader had a team of warriors, and if he saw a sweet little ship nearby, he simply captured it and resold the goods. If there was nothing suitable nearby, the pirate simply performed the functions of a trader and still made money. Even the legendary Julius Caesar was once captured by Cilician pirates for ransom. It is not difficult to guess that immediately after the ransom was paid, Caesar personally oversaw the execution of the fools. Around that time, piracy began to be considered one of the most serious crimes. However, states quickly realized that by recruiting pirates, they could do a lot of dirty work while officially keeping their hands clean. And during wars, pirates, who knew the seas like gods, became a lifesaver. Hence, a whole dozen familiar names appeared: buccaneers, corsairs, privateers, and filibusters. All these terms were invented in different countries, but mean the same thing: a legalized pirate. France, Holland, England, and other countries during the war gave pirates instructions on which ships could be attacked, along with papers protecting the guys on their territory. And the privateers, under the protection of the certificate, calmly entered state ports, replenished provisions, and were very respected people. There are hundreds of cases when pirates transitioned to official work in the Navy, occupying high positions. A striking example is Sir Francis Drake, an English pirate who raided Spanish ships. Once he sent Queen Elizabeth a modest gift in the form of 2 years' income of an entire country. As a result, Francis was knighted, made an honorary citizen of England, and was protected from Spain by legal means. Our Marcus Rashford, nicknamed Barbarossa, is of course a lower-ranking bird. It is 1718, which many consider the golden age of piracy and the last, as most pirates were destroyed this year. But more on that later. For now, let's talk about Barbarossa's surroundings. He, along with his ship, is in the city of Nassau, which is still considered the capital of the Bahamas. Marcus stopped there not just by chance, as he is an official member of the Coast Brotherhood. In 1706, the United Brotherhood of Pirates effectively took over the Bahamas, and Nassau was considered the capital of the so-called Pirate Republic, which even had its own flag. From the perspective of international law, the islands belonged to England, but in fact, the British administration left, and the pirates easily repelled the attacks of the Spanish and French with the help of their ships and fort. There are many tales about pirate states in books and movies, but the Pirate Republic in Nassau remains the largest entity that truly was a mini-state. Marcus owns a ship called Happy Delivery. Pirates really loved naming their ships. Researcher Mark Rediker in the 20th century analyzed pirate ship names, and in 18% of cases, they included the word revenge. 15% of pirates added the prefix rover to the name, and another 10% included a mention of royal authority. A striking example is the legendary ship Queen Anne's Revenge, owned by Blackbeard and featured in movies. As you can see, the name immediately mentions both revenge and the Queen. For the most part, such names were chosen for psychological psychological impact on victims, and Marcus's ship, Happy Delivery, is no exception. It holds 10 times less than the mentioned Queen Anne's Revenge and has only 36 crew members. But the highlight is that the small size speeds up boarding. Barbarossa and his team simply ram the necessary ship and board it on foot through the holds. Hence the name About Delivery, instilling fear. Often opponents don't even have a couple of minutes to prepare, and hitting such a tiny ship with a cannon is almost impossible. Overall, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies quite accurately depict the costumes and appearance of pirate crews. The bodies of the workers were often covered with a heap of tattoos, and not just for color. After all, at that time, criminals were often branded. The Spanish burned the letter P, crowned with a crown on their bodies. The French, the lilies of the Bourbons, and the English marked with anchors and frequently changing coats of arms. It is logical to assume that Marcus's team is 80% composed of criminals, and it is equally logical that the guys use tattoos to hide the criminal brands. And pirates are also incredibly superstitious. Amulets, talismans, bandages, every self-respecting corsair had something like that. A lead bullet wrapped in silver or gold to protect against a treacherous shot, a bear's tooth guaranteed a safe return home, Neptune's anchor helped with navigation, and a small battle axe, according to pirates, almost guaranteed victory in the upcoming battle. In addition, any fragment of a knife or other weapon extracted from a wound should be kept in a pocket at the waist for protection. Pirates also loved astrology, wearing their zodiac signs on a chain, but perhaps the most exotic detail is the Blood Brother amulet. Our Barbarossa has one, and he has a friend nicknamed Anthony the Long. The essence of the amulet is simple. It is a small cactus vessel with a drop of blood from the person you consider a brother. Pirates exchanged blood, treated the vessel with wax, and parted ways. And if Marcus ever receives his comrade's amulet, it means he must drop everything and rush to help. The Pirate Brotherhood is no joke. However, the Jolly Roger flag is not seen above Marcus's ship. There flies the usual flag of England. In the hold, there are French, Dutch, and other significant state flags, along with a red flag with a skull, bones, and other joys of life. The black and white Jolly Roger will only be registered in the Oxford Dictionary in 1724. This is entirely understandable, as sailing under it in open sea is akin to hanging a target over your head. In the vast majority of cases, pirates sailed under the flags of their states, as many had privateering and other licenses, and the chance of receiving a cannon shot in such a scenario is much lower. If it comes to robbing a French ship, it is much easier to approach it at a visible distance under the French flag, so as not to give the enemy time to prepare. Only then would the pirates raise one of the many flags they had. Each had its own purpose. In the ship's log of Captain Richard Hawkins, there is a whole explanation on this matter. Captured in 1724, the captain states that if pirates approach you under a black flag, similar to the Jolly Roger, it means they are generally ready to consider surrender. But if pirates approach under a red flag, there is no chance of salvation, and you need to prepare for battle. Again, despite all the romance, pirates were smart people, and the chance of winning by attacking suddenly is always the highest. Therefore, our Marcus often approaches Spanish ships under the Spanish flag so that no one suspects anything. Also, in the most visible place on the ship hangs a code signed by all crew members. One of the first to introduce such a practice was the legendary pirate Henry Morgan, famous for his brutal raids. The guy was also favored by the English authorities and even became the vice governor of Jamaica, all thanks to the code, the punishment for violating which was sometimes even lethal. Each captain could create his own code, and here the films about Jack Sparrow are a bit wrong. There was no single document for all pirates. At the captain's discretion, he personally devised it and the crew members signed it. For example, the personal code of Francis Drake, although unofficial, ensured that even the youngest cabin boy received a reward after a battle. Often, Captain Drake would end up in the red to reward every hard-working crew member. Of course, there are a couple of myths surrounding pirates. Perhaps the most common is drunkenness. Guys like our Barbarossa love to drink, but on the vast majority of ships at sea, there was a dry law. The work of a pirate is not easy and requires concentration, and a drunken crew could go to the bottom at the first storm. The same applies to gambling. Pirates loved it, but as with drinking, it was only during stops in ports and entertainment on land. On ships, a good crew was a well-oiled machine where everyone knew their place. Eye patches were also used, but scientists believe that pirates prepared their eyes for descending into the dark hold this way. The eye kept in darkness quickly adapted to the dim light. We won't even mention treasures, as a pirate's life was not long, and only a few lived to old age, making it pointless to save for the future. Let's talk instead about the Pirate Republic in the Bahamas, where our Marcus is located. In 1706, a funny situation arose. Large-scale wars between states ended, and they realized that it was much cheaper to negotiate at the table than at sea. The need for pirates in the service of the king disappeared, and they began to be hunted down. A large group of pirates concentrated in the Bahamas and effectively represented a small state. The legendary Edward Teach, nicknamed Blackbeard, is considered its most popular resident. There were another dozen powerful corsairs in the Bahamas, and they were all united by one thing: freedom. Our Barbarossa raided ships and knew he could return home to rest and recuperate. The trouble was that the pirates' freedom was their downfall. The Republic didn't even have a ruler. On paper, it was Benjamin Hornigold, but in fact, the position meant nothing. There were no courts, laws, or anything beyond pirate freedom in the Bahamas. And when in 1717, England remembered that it legally owned the island, there was no one to fight for independence. The English took an unprecedented step. They sent former corsair Woodes Rogers, who had become a British military officer, to the Pirate Republic. He brought a real treasure to the Pirate Council, a document of amnesty. All residents were offered to become subjects of the Empire, and in return, the Empire would forget their sins and ask them to live by its laws. But pirates do not follow laws, and many, including Blackbeard, refused amnesty. As a result, the overwhelming majority of rebellious pirates were simply killed, and the survivors either became subjects of the British Empire or went underground. What did our Marcus choose? This is a mystery you can ponder in the comments. We will only note that despite all the horrors, pirates were at least honest guys. We are not talking about those who are currently engaged in piracy, but about the old hardcore pirates who had more logic than states. For example, a ship's crew could easily send the captain away and choose a new one. Can a military ship boast of this? Of course not. No matter how foolish the leader is, people are forced to listen to and obey him. There was more democracy among pirates than there is now. However, their image should not be romanticized either, as they were, in fact, murderers and robbers, even with their code. Another thing is that the times were tough, and life was worth nothing. So in the realities of the Middle Ages, pirates were perhaps the most democratic community on the planet. Until next time, friends!